Sabres burning question number 4 with the Prospects Challenge starting this week. I got one for you on the guys we don't expect to make the roster, but hopefully at some point during the year. Little prospect talk coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That does include our YouTube channel. If you would like to watch the show, you could do that. Hit the like and subscribe button if you do. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, as always, you can check out our Locked On Sabres text club. If you want to sign up for that, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here, a couple of weeks out from the start of Buffalo Sabres preseason. And this week, we do have some hockey downtown at Harbor Center. The Prospects Challenge gets rolling tomorrow, Thursday, against the Columbus Blue Jackets Prospects. That's a 7 o'clock puck drop. And then you got a game on Friday against the New Jersey Devils Prospects. That's also a 7 o'clock puck drop. And then Saturday against Columbus, and then back Monday to round out the schedule against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So 3 Prospect Challenge games. Tomorrow's, is New Jersey and Columbus. So the tournament gets rolling, but the Sabres are not involved in that first game. So Friday is their first game against New Jersey at 7 p.m. And on today's show, we're going to talk some prospects in relation to the roster and some of these kids that are going to be at this tournament over the next couple of days. Names to watch, whether that is Konsta Helenius, whether that is Isak Rosén, whether that is Radim Murtka, the new first-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres. We'll get through all of them. There's one guy that is not expected to be at this challenge. He's not on the roster that I will loop in for today's show as we talk about kids that could surprise and maybe show up at some point during the regular season. And of course, that would be Devon Levi, who we'll talk about as well. I got a poll question up to our text club about the prospects. And if there was one prospect that you could pick to have show up, surprise everybody, and make the NHL roster while also being an impact player, like a good rookie, not just, kid that makes the team because they don't have anybody else and he plays 8 minutes a night. Like, I'm talking big surprise. Shows up and produces for you. Who would you pick? The centers you could pick from, a lot of people are saying Devon Levi at goaltender. And I think that's a worthy choice. There really isn't any defenseman to choose from here. Radim Murtka would be the one, but it's so early for him. He was just drafted. Nikita Novikov is a name to mention here as well. So we'll get to all that coming up on today's show. If you're looking for the Prospects Challenge roster, though, the Sabres have it at their website. If you're in our text club, we posted that yesterday. And all the big names are pretty much there. This tournament doesn't always get the best roster because in those years where the Sabres had a lot of college kids, Owen Power, or they had Ryan Johnson at the time who was still at the University of Minnesota, the college schedule, the way that works out, you don't always get them coming to this tournament. But for this, the Sabres have a lot of Rochester kids. Konsta Helenius is Rochester. Noah Ostlund is Rochester. Isak Rosén is Rochester. Anton Wahlberg is Rochester. Novikov is Rochester. Levi is the one guy that's Rochester. It's not going, but we'll get to a lot of the goalie names too that are worthy of getting to as well. So good attendance. Like, I expect the Sabres to do well here. I do wonder how they'll look because in recent years, the Sabres have been considered the best or one of the best prospect pools in the National Hockey League. And at the moment, that seems to have taken a step back because you've got some of these guys that have graduated to NHL level. They might not have the highest end level prospect pool that they once did. We'll see that tested a little bit, though, in a tournament like this. So let's start off by rolling through the goaltenders, and then we'll get to the forwards and the defensemen, because the most popular answer that I had to one prospect shows up, shocks the world, produces for you, was Devon Levi. And a lot of that is in relation to what the Sabres are right now in goal and the untrustworthiness that they are with Lyon and Luukkonen, not knowing what that's going to look like. Like, man, if you could tell me, Levi, this is the year where he finally puts it all together at the NHL level and is able to be their guy at some point during the middle or the late stages of the season, that would be as good for their playoff odds as anything else. Now, a couple other names we'll get to, but in terms of this prospects challenge, there are two goaltenders to worth watching that are, I think, competing in some respect to be like the next prospect goalie after Levi in the organization. One that was highly drafted, Topias Leinonen, who was the first draft pick, first goalie pick in the 2022 NHL draft, and he has not really had a very good development over the last couple of years. He'll be at this tournament. Scott Ratzlaff will also be there. He's had a better development track since he was drafted in the 5th round the next year in 2023. I, at the moment, would expect him to be their most productive goaltender at the Prospects Challenge. But Levi's the answer. And today's burning question being about, could a kid really help them this season? I'm sure the Sabres would also tell you their answer would be Devon Levi because they're searching for goaltender, and they've invested a lot in him. I've made this point before that they've invested seasons in Devon Levi being their starting goaltender, not trading for a goalie in 22-23 and potentially, not even potentially, I think you did cost yourself a playoff spot to make sure that Levi would sign, not addressing goaltender the next offseason because you were giving him the net. You weren't good that year. The following year after that, it's giving him another spot on the NHL roster and not addressing goaltender. This year they finally did with Alex Lyon, but you've committed seasons to this kid's development. You're going to want to see a payoff on that if you are Kevin Adams and the Buffalo Sabres, and Sabre fans want to see a payoff on that. Having a consistent long-term starting goaltender is the dream. They've not had that since Ryan Miller was the goaltender. Luukkonen, if he has a nice season here and there, every third year is really good, that'll be fun, but having him be a year-to-year starter, I do not believe that is in the cards for UPL. It still could be for Levi. And seeing signs of that right out of the gates this season in Rochester and having him come up some point during the middle of the year, even later in the year, and start to command that attention in the net. He was not my answer at the outset here, but I've had a lot of discussion in our text club about those that are saying Levi, and they're talking me into it a little bit. It's the team need more than anything. I guess it's just me being patient with Levi at this point. Like, I'm just not thinking about him for the NHL club this year. If he comes up and naturally commands the net, then great, and you trade Luukkonen away at some point, get that contract off your roster. But for now, I'm thinking about some of these other guys. Konsta Helenius, Noah Ostlund. Let's get to them when we come back, because these are the ones at the Prospects Challenge that I think we're going to have to be paying attention to. Try to gauge how close to NHL ready are they. That when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Monarch Money. Most people can't even name all financial accounts or even what they're worth for themselves, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, a couple weeks away from hockey season, and we can't wait for that. Let's hope that this one goes a little bit better than past ones. The Prospects Challenge is the kickoff for hockey season in some ways. It's the first chance to really go get a look at hockey. If you are you got an open weekend afternoon and you're looking for some place cool to go in, we're still got some days here where it's in the 70s, and this is your chance. $12 basically to go into these games, though. Which that's not great, but $12 it is. Friday against New Jersey. The players that I'm going to be watching for the most in terms of their readiness for the NHL. Can they graduate from Rochester to Buffalo? Can they fight for a spot with the Sabres? When the Sabres have a lineup that is kind of begging for a kid to shock the world. Shock the world. I mean, really, like top 6 forward spot, some version of what Yuri Kulik did last year. Step it up. And Kulik it was only 24 points for Kulik. I mean, you'd like to think even something beyond that. When I think shock the world, I think you're a Calder candidate out of nowhere. That's a dream. They haven't had that since Tyler Myers, and he won the Calder, I know. But when's the last time a rookie came out of nowhere with a giant step forward? I remember Drew Stafford did this in 2007 for the Buffalo Sabres. Vanek did it out of the lockout, but not really much since then, other than like your top picks, Dahlin and Eichel, these guys that would go to the NHL right away. The couple of names I'm looking for, Konsta Helenius and Noah Ostlund. Those are my top 2 players to watch for at the Prospects Challenge. They should dominate this tournament. They are in positions where they should be some of the best players. They were drafted in spots to be that. They have produced at the AHL level to be that. And now that you're going against kids that some of which are junior players that haven't even tasted pro hockey, even on the AHL level, you should go in there and look like men amongst boys. Because by comparison to a lot of these other players, they will be. And Helenius especially, because he comes from the Finnish league where he was playing against men even before he was drafted. And now he's got a full year of the AHL under his belt. Then Helenius is the one, especially if you're looking for the most mature player out there on the ice during this tournament, that's what I want to see from him. And I also want to see a lot of offense, because my dream would be that this year he is able to look like somebody that could be a top 6 center, let alone forward, but a top 6 center at some point during the year. Last year in Rochester, Helenius, 65 games played, 14 goals, 21 assists for 35 points. It got a little bit better as the season went on. He was responsible. He was a little bit of an agitator. He had 6 points in 8 playoff games and was starting brawls at the end of games and getting under the opponent's skin. When I talked with Amherst's head coach at the end of Michael Leone during the playoffs, he compared him in a sense to Brad Marchand, that smaller player, but not too small, getting under the opponent's skin, producing offensively, all around 200-foot game. He's the guy that I'm thinking about the most for this, especially the Prospects Challenge. I think there's a definite path for him to become a top 6 forward on this team where, Kulik, Tage, Norris, Tuck, those are the only 4 that have to be in the top 6. If Helenius can come in over top of Jason Zucker, or maybe even Zach Benson, who's playing in a more defensive role at some point, over Jack Quinn, over Josh Doan, I think that that's possible for Helenius. For Noah Ostlund, little bit of a different story, because I think there's more flash with his game. And I think Helenius is a player, sure, I'd love for him to be a top 6 guy, but I could see him being a bottom 6 guy while he learns the offensive part of his game at the NHL level and maybe takes a step up further along. Noah Ostlund is somebody that I would like to see go right to the second line whenever he becomes a regular NHL player. And last year, he was pretty undeniably great in Rochester. Second half of the year, player of the month in the AHL, tons and tons of points. He went on that crazy streak in the spring. He ended the year with 19 goals and 36 points in 45 games. But All of that was in the second half of the year. And he earned that call up to the Buffalo Sabres. He did not do much in the playoffs, which is a little concerning given that he's a player that you're hoping puts on a little bit more weight. 175 pounds, what he's listed at. I hope that he comes to camp a little closer to 190, maybe even closer to 200. He's got the 6-foot frame, hopefully, to do that. But silky smooth hands. Love the hockey IQ on this guy. A little bit more skilled, though. And I would like to hope that he is somebody that if he's rocking it in Rochester for the first month of the year and the Sabres don't like what they're getting offensively, that he's a call-up candidate to come up and spark the offense, maybe spark the power play. So Ostlund and Helenius, and you want to start here. If you want them to be potential call-ups, potential rookie surprises, you want to see signs of that right here and now. This tournament look like the best players at the tournament, and those two are absolutely number 1 and 2 for me amongst the skaters that I'll be watching for. Now, when we come back, defensemen. But before we even do that, I want to talk about one more forward. We'll talk about a couple defensemen, but first I want to talk about one more forward. Another popular answer in the text club to this question about, like, if you could have one prospect show up and surprise everybody, who would it be? The other name I got a lot of was Anton Wahlberg. Anton Wahlberg, if you are unfamiliar with the player, he was a second-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres in the 2023 NHL draft. This is a big kid, 6'3". He's physical. He is defensively smart. He's got a little bit of offensive flair to his game as well. Wahlberg is somebody that I more foresee being like a third, fourth line center in the Buffalo Sabres organization. And at the moment, I think they're okay on that front. Ryan McLeod is on the team, and he is going to be for a while, and we'll see what he develops into. Maybe he has to be their second line center at some point during the season if Kulik doesn't take a step, or they want to put him to the wing, or Norris is getting injured. Like, we all kind of know that's probably in the cards for him. So maybe there's a spot for Wahlberg playing on the wing in the bottom six. I guess my part of not picking him would be I've got bottom six guys. I've got a lot of them. Benson could play down there. Zucker can play down there. Doan, Quinn, McLeod, Greenway, Krebs, Danforth, who they signed. I mean, I've got players for that. Not to say Wahlberg never has a spot on this team, but I need scorers, and I'm picking the scoring prospects over the defensive prospect, the physical prospect. But I like the player, and I hope that he takes another step this year. When we come back, the two defensemen that I want to mention, the first-round rookie and the guy that, like, if he's ever going to make the team, like, now's about time, and that would be Nikita Novikov when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. I love using FanDuel because of how it fits the bet in with a Sunday watching football. Maybe you like how a game is going. Maybe you like a team that going into the game, they start slow and you think they'll rebound, so you throw a little bit of live action on them as well. Maybe you want to double down on some of your fantasy guys. FanDuel Sportsbook makes everything more exciting. Quick, easy, best way to make a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So make every moment more, whether you're watching your team or another game. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com. Again, you'll get, if your first $5 bet wins, your new customer, you get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download the app, visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet today. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, wrapping things up on this Wednesday, and we're going to talk a couple of defensemen. And if you're wondering, by the way, hey, how come you didn't talk about Isak Rosen? Simple answer. Don't think he ever makes the NHL. It's just simple answer. I don't want to say that I've completely given up on the guy because stranger things have happened at the NHL level, and sometimes, I mean, Alex Lyon, he's a goalie, but he didn't become an NHL regular until he was 30. And Rosen at the moment is 22. So I know he's still young, but you're going into year 4 of professional hockey, North American professional hockey. If you want any professional hockey, you want to include the Swedish level, this is his 5th pro season. Just, it's so rare that guys play that much pro hockey before the NHL level and turn into an impact NHL player. And he's too small to ever be like a consistently good bottom 6 player to me. So listen, he'll have a nice long career, I think, as an AHL scorer and an AHL all-star guy who's going to be an occasional call-up, whether it's with the Sabres or with somebody else. That's what I see for him. But he's too small to ever be an impactful bottom 6 guy, and he's not good enough to ever be an impactful top 6 guy. So that's why I'm not really spending a lot of time on him. To the defenseman. Blue line, I don't think a lot of people are going to answer defensive prospects like, oh, somebody shows up and surprises, because everyone feels pretty comfortable with who the Sabres have on their blue line. But if there were 2 guys to name, Radim Mrtka, that's number 1. He was the first-round pick this past summer, and I don't think anybody thinks he's going to make the NHL club right out of the gates. I certainly don't think that, but Zach Benson did it a couple of years ago. You never know. But in this case, I think I do know that it's not going to happen. He needs to fill out more. He needs to become a little bit more, filled out body-wise for his frame, 6'6". I think you got your 20 to 25, 30 pounds of muscle away from this kid making the NHL level. And it's only 1 year of North American hockey. Took a little bit of adjustment at the WHL level. Just not somebody you have in the cards. But you'd love to see a 2-year development. And at the Prospects Challenge, if he looks great, then you might think, oh, okay, maybe next year he's competing for a spot. And if he looks like there's a long way to go, then maybe we're thinking more about a 2-3 year process. The name, though, that is more in the cards for this year. Sabres have their 6. Dahlin, Byram, Power, Kesselring, Samuelson, and Timmins. And then they've got other guys. They've got Ryan Johnson, who's in the mix as well, and they've got others. But Nikita Novikov, keep an eye on this guy. I've been talking about him here and there for a couple of years. Big guy, physical guy, has got a couple of years now of AHL experience. He was a 6th-round pick. Now, here's why, you might just say, oh, you just said a couple years pro hockey experience is a bad thing in Roseanne's case, because I think Roseanne's a top 6 guy. Novikov, he's got 3rd-pairing defensemen written all over him. He is going to be physical. He's going to play 15 to 18 minutes a night. He's going to penalty kill, 6'4", over 200 pounds. Little bit of offense, but it's more about the other stuff. I wonder if there's a call-up in the cards this year for Novikov. He's 22 years old. If it's ever going to happen for him, I think it would right now. So another name to mention on the blue line. In fact, the only prospect defenseman that I'm thinking about that has the chops to take a step up this year to the NHL club, unless you consider Ryan Johnson a prospect still, which at this point, I should look him up real quick. He is not the Prospects Challenge because he is, what age is Ryan Johnson at this point? He's 24. Yeah, 24 years old. So even those couple years might not sound like a lot, but to me it is. He could be a call-up. There was the contract they gave him that was a little bit surprising to me. So Ryan Johnson could be that. I consider him less of a prospect, though, than Novikov. Novikov's the defenseman that I'm wondering about for this year, and we'll get a look at him at the Prospects Challenge as well. So another name to watch. Thursday for the start of the tournament. Friday is what we care about. That's the first game for the Sabres against New Jersey. You could vote in our poll. One prospect becomes a surprise NHL contributor this season. Who do you pick? Early favorite, Noah Ostlund over Devon Levi, actually. Early favorite. So you can vote on that at Locked On Sabres. You can join our subtext, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. And we will talk to you next tomorrow as we get closer to the start of the preseason here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. You want more on the rest of the NHL? There's a story about Kirill Kaprizov potentially turning down a deal with Minnesota for $16 million per year. You get more on that and other things at Locked On NHL. No off-season coverage like it. All the league-wide stories that matter, local coverage from all across Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll talk to you tomorrow here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.